Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give everyone just a couple minutes or about a minute to enter. I'm Angela. I'm the Southwest Regional Advocacy Manager, and I'm just going to give everyone just a couple more seconds. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Angela, and I'm the California and Southwest Regional Advocacy Manager. I want to thank you all for joining us today. We're going to do a webinar called Empowerment at the End of Life, Charting Your Dementia Journey. This webinar will be recorded, and I'm going to send a follow-up email afterwards with the recording and then the resources that we mentioned during this webinar. If you haven't joined us for the past two webinars, I do want to recognize that April 16th is National Healthcare Decisions Day. And this is a day where we want to inspire Americans to educate themselves, to have conversations around end of life planning, and share, have these discussions with their families and friends. So this is I think our third webinar now, and we're going to do a couple more throughout the month of April. And so we'll also include the link to register for those in the follow-up email in case you haven't seen those yet. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to enter them in the question and answer box, and we will try to answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. So Compassionate Choices is the nation's oldest, largest, and most active nonprofit working to improve care, expand options, and empower everyone to chart their end-of-life journey. We believe in patient-directed care, where patients are informed of their healthcare options, and then they get to make the decision on what kind of treatment works best for their values. Dementia is an umbrella term for progressive loss of memory, language, cognitive abilities, and functional capacity serious enough to interfere with daily activities. So typically this would be memory loss and difficulty in at least one other area. So speaking or writing, recognizing familiar surroundings, or planning and carrying out complex multi-step tasks. The most common type of dementia would be Alzheimer's disease, and this accounts for approximately 6 million Americans. About 2/3 of Americans living with Alzheimer's disease are women. And then when we look at statistics, it's about older Black Americans are twice as likely as older white Americans to have dementia. And then older Latino and Hispanic Americans are 1.5 times more likely to have dementia than older white Americans. And then dementia also kills more than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. So through medicine, we've learned how to prolong the body, but not the mind. Often instead of treating dementia like the terminal illness that it is, medical advances are extending the length of time a person lives with dementia. It's estimated that about 1 in 3 people now die with dementia or Alzheimer's disease, and even more recent research has shown that it's about 1 in 2. Risk factors for developing dementia can include age. So the older you are, the more likely your chances of developing dementia are. So if you're under 60, it's pretty small. If you're 80 to 85, it's about 1 out of 6 Americans will have dementia. From 85 to 90, it's the 1 out of 3. And then above 90 would be 1 out of 2 Americans have dementia. Family history can also increase your risk of developing dementia, and then chronic diseases such as high blood pressure and diabetes. So can dementia be cured? Unfortunately, there is no cure for dementia as of yet. There are some ways that research has shown that may lead to reducing your risk. So what we have learned is that what's good for your heart is good for your head, or also your brain. So physical exercise is helpful, having a healthy and well-balanced diet. In particular, there's been research around showing that the Mediterranean diet may be helpful, having strong social connections and keeping mentally active. If you've seen any research around like hearing loss and increase of dementia, that's all attributed to, if you're unable to hear your family and friends in conversations, that causes more social isolation and decrease in, staying mentally active. So that's the link there. Quitting smoking, quitting drinking, or just drinking in moderation. And then we also typically consider dementia to be in 7 different stages. So mental decline can look different for everyone. As we stated before, dementia is a progressive disorder, and most cases of dementia last 8 to 10 years. Many people can live several meaningful years after the onset of dementia. So stage 1 is just considered normal behavior. Stage 2 is forgetfulness. So this can be forgetting people's names or where you left your keys, but you're still able to drive, work, and be social. And I also just want to point out that it is normal to have, forgetfulness as you age, and that's not necessarily going to be dementia. But it's typically as you see the forgetfulness increase, and when it is starting to interfere with like your ability to, go to work and be social. Stage 3 is increased forgetfulness. This would be mild decline, so getting lost when driving, decrease in work performance, and then your loved ones also may start to notice. So mid-stage dementia would be moderate decline. This is typically when a physician can detect cognitive problems. It can be difficulty in concentrating, forgetting recent events, having difficulty managing your finances. You may have difficulty or get lost trying to drive to a new location, and then difficulty in completing tasks. Stage 5 is considered moderately severe decline. So this is still considered mid-stage dementia. And this is when major memory deficiencies start happening. So you'll need assistance with activities of daily living. So these are sometimes referred to just as ADL. And this would be dressing, bathing, going to the toilet. You may forget details like your address or your phone number. You might not know what the date or time, and you might also have memory lapses and not know where you are. So stage 6 would be moderately severe decline. So your loved ones, your loved one will not remember much of any of their past, and they may not recognize you or your family or friends. In addition, it becomes very difficult to carry out the ADLs. So you could have problems with incontinence, so not being able to go to the bathroom, difficulty speaking, personality and emotional changes, delusions, and anxiety can all happen during this stage. And then the last stage of dementia is stage 7. So this is the final stage. And this is typically when your loved one will not remember any of their past or recognize anyone else. They'll also have difficulty in speaking and communicating. They'll require help with most activities. They won't be able to walk anymore, and there'll also be a loss of motor skills. So one of the questions that we often get asked is, do I have any legal options to avoid living with dementia? So absolutely. Every adult with mental capacity has the right to document their desire to forego medical treatment. In early stages of dementia, patients can also choose to voluntarily stop eating and drinking. So if you attended last week's webinar when we talked about advanced care directives, we talked about voluntary stop eating and drinking. And I'm going to go over it again, since this is an option that people sometimes choose when they receive a dementia diagnosis. So as a reminder, voluntary stop eating and drinking is a conscious decision to refuse food and fluids of any kind. So this is something that you would have to, if you get a dementia diagnosis, you would still have to be in control of making all your healthcare decisions, if you were to choose voluntary stop eating and drinking. So this is not an option if you have advanced dementia. So voluntary stop eating and drinking can be sought at home or in a care facility, but it should be medically managed to minimize discomfort. You cannot do this alone. You will need 24-hour support during this process. And this could be just bringing in your friends and families and having them stay with you. Or you may also choose ongoing hospice care and have oversight by your physician as well. So even though voluntary stop eating and drinking is legal in all 50 states, not everybody is supportive of this option. So it's important that if you live in a care facility that you discuss this with the nursing director or social worker, because you will need their agreement to support you. When choosing voluntary stop eating and drinking, it can be difficult to predict exactly when the end will come. And different things to take into consideration for how long it could be would be a person's physical condition, their age, medications, any illnesses that they might have, height to weight ratio, fluid retention, and then also maybe just a person's ability to let go. So some things to think about if this is an option that you would be considering is to be specific and plan ahead. So sometimes it can help to create a video of yourself and why you're choosing this option. That way that your family and your caregivers can look at it, through the process and later on. It's also important to complete all your end of life business ahead of time. Decide what kind of memorial and burial plans you might want. And then it's also, can help reduce your anxiety around it. If you discussed your caregiver with your caregivers and loved ones, what would make this time, more helpful to you? So some people choose specific movies that they want to watch or TV shows. They might have passages read to them or poetry. Some people want to have photo albums near them. Some people choose to do a legacy project at the end of life during this time. And then it's also, you can just ask your caregiver, if you want lotion rubbed on your hands or your body to help with any of the dryness and to help you stay more comfortable, or if massage might be helpful. And then one way that you can also plan for the end of life with dementia is Compassion and Choices has created a dementia values and priority tool. And this will help you identify your personal values and care wishes so that you can stay in control. So this tool will help you document all of your care instructions and very clear-cut instructions for your loved one. And it helps take the burden off them to make decisions about your end of life. And it helps ensure that you get the care that you want or don't want, should you no longer be able to make decisions for yourself if advanced dementia were to take over. So I am going to walk you all through this tool right now. And let me go ahead and share my screen. So I took you to this page. It's called Our Tools to Finish Strong. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight is that when you scroll down, you'll see our End of Life Decisions Guide and Toolkit. And so in this toolkit, it's great. It has great suggestions about how to have conversations around end of life. It goes over different end of life options, what different medical treatment at the end of life may be. And then you can click here to order a free copy of it, and you just enter your address, and then we'll send you one of these booklets. And one of the things that I just wanted to point out real fast before we get into the tool is that the tool is online, but it's also on paper if you prefer that, in this toolkit. So to find the tool online, you'll just scroll down a little bit lower, and then click the Dementia Values and Priority tool. So I already have an account, so that's why this is going to look a little bit different. But what you'll do is you'll see a screen like this, and you'll create an account for yourself. And then this will be what the homepage looks like. There'll be some videos that you can watch if you want. There's about a 30-minute video with our CEO discussing dementia and why we created this tool. This dementia values and priorities introduction. It's about a 3-minute video that kind of briefly goes over it. But since I'm going to walk you through it, we're just going to jump right into it. So when you start, it will also show you how to navigate this tool. And then it will also go over a little bit about what is dementia. You can read about it. And again, what this tool does. So what we're going to look at right now is it's going to offer us 15 different markers related to quality of life, and then we're going to choose the care preferences. So this would be the start page, and what you're going to do is pick the box that best describes you. So I have been diagnosed with dementia, I am still of sound mind, and I have the ability and mental capacity to make my own healthcare decisions. So again, even if you receive a dementia diagnosis, as long as you still have the ability to make your own healthcare decisions, you can complete this. We're going to select the second box that says, I have not been diagnosed with dementia. I want to make my wishes known now in case I am diagnosed with dementia in the future. So I'm going to take this as if this is for me. So I'm going to select the second box. So again, this goes over a little bit what we talked about, just over dementia. And one of the things that I first want to start with is this question mark is going to be on every single page. And it says, help me understand these levels of care. So I always think it's important to start here. So the options that you'll have for each marker is going to be these 4 levels of care. So I want to live as long as possible. So this means, I want CPR, I want to be on a ventilator, I want to be given feeding tubes. The second option will be, I want no life-saving treatments. So this will be, I don't want to go to, I don't want CPR, I don't want to be on a ventilator, but I do want acute care. So if I get an ear infection, if I get pneumonia, I want to be treated for that. And then the third option will be keep me comfortable and stop or avoid any treatments that are preventing me from dying from other diseases. So this would be, you would be receiving comfort care. But if I have pneumonia or a UTI, I would just not be treated with medication for those and just allow me to die naturally from those while providing me with comfort care. Same thing, as people age, if they take heart medication to keep their heart going, you may say, like, at this time, I'd want to stop taking my heart medication. And then the last care option will be keep me comfortable while stopping all treatments and withholding food and water so that I can die peacefully. And so I know we talked a little bit about voluntary stop eating and drinking. So again, I just want to make the clear distinction that voluntary stop eating and drinking is when a person has full decision-making capabilities and they make a conscious choice to stop eating and drinking. So this would not apply to this tool because this is more for advanced dementia. This would be more like if you put down food in front of me and I'm able to use my hands and pick up forks and I'm not choosing to do that and eat. Or if you put food, on a spoon next to me and I turn my head. So I wouldn't want to be force fed in any sort of way. And what I also recommend to people is we're going to be able to print the dementia addendum at the end of this. And I recommend printing this page and just keeping it with the dementia addendum. That way it's clear to everybody about what level of care you want. So the first one says, I have forgotten everything about my past, but I still recognize those closest to me. So again, I'm just doing this for myself. You can do it for you. But I would say I want no life-saving treatments. So again, I, want to be treated if I have pneumonia, but I don't want CPR. Don't want to be on a ventilator. And then hit continue. So the second question is, I am able to live according to my spiritual beliefs, food preferences, meditating or praying, attending services, etc. So for this one, I would say I want no life-saving treatment. Question number 3 is I no longer recognize my loved ones, but still smile and seem happy in my own world. So again, for me, I would say keep me comfortable and stop or avoid treatments that are preventing me from dying from other diseases. I no longer recognize my loved ones, and more often than not, I seem unhappy, sad, or anxious. So this is not what I want to feel at the end of my life. So I would say keep me comfortable while stopping all treatments and withholding food and water so that I can die peacefully. Question number 5 is I am suffering mentally from anxiety and you are not able to control it with medication. So again, for myself, I would select keep me comfortable while stopping all treatments and withholding food and water. Question number 6 is I am angry or violent, but with medication, I am normally okay. So for this one, I would go ahead and say keep me comfortable and stop or avoid any treatments that are preventing me from dying from other diseases. Question number 7 is I am angry or violent and it is not controlled with medication. I would say keep me comfortable, but withhold food and water so that I can die peacefully. I can no longer, question number 8 is I can no longer communicate with my loved ones through words. So I would select keep me comfortable while withholding food and water so that I can die peacefully. Question number 9 is I can no longer feed myself. And I would select keep me comfortable while withholding food and water so that I can die peacefully. Question number 10 is I can no longer bathe myself. Again, for me, I would say keep me comfortable while withholding food and water so that I can die peacefully. Question 11 is I can no longer toilet myself. For me, I would pick keep me comfortable while stopping all treatments and withholding food and water so that I can die peacefully. Question number 12 is I can no longer dress myself. For this one, I would say keep me comfortable and stop and avoid treatments that are preventing me from dying from other diseases. Question 13 is the only option to care for me is in a nursing home. I would say keep me comfortable while stopping all treatments and withholding food and water so that I can die peacefully. Question number 14 is I am no longer seem interested in food, but I will swallow if a spoon is held to my lips. And I would say keep me comfortable while stopping all treatments and withholding food and water so that I can die peacefully. And then question number 15 is I am unable to leave my bed. And that for me, I would say keep me comfortable while stopping all treatments and withholding food and water so that I can die peacefully. And then it gives you an option. So it says, regardless of my physical and mental state, I would like the following treatment. So if there's something specific that you would like, you can go ahead and type that in here. If not, you can just leave it blank. And then it's going to ask you to review your care preferences. So this is just an overview of what we just went through, just to make sure that it's correct with what I had checked off. So the first question is, I want to live as long as possible. If I'm experiencing just one of the following, I did not mark any of those. So as you can see, nothing is marked. So I want no life-saving treatments if I'm experiencing just one of the following. So I had selected, I have forgotten everything about my past, but I still recognize those closest to me. And then I am able to live according to my spiritual beliefs. So those two are checked, and that's correct. For keep me comfortable and stop and avoid treatments that are preventing me from dying. So again, this would be, stop giving me my heart medication, or if I get pneumonia, don't treat me for the pneumonia, just provide me comfort care. And so I selected that I no longer recognize my loved ones, but still seem happy in my own world. And I can no longer address myself, and I am angry or violent, but with medication, I'm normally okay. And then the last option was keep me comfortable while stopping all treatments and withholding food and water. And as you can see, for me, again, these are the majority that I had checked off. So this tool, if you do it online, then you can go through and combine it, which is nice. That you don't really have the option so much to do when you write it out on paper. But so this would be if I experience, and you can select 2 or more of the following. So I'm going to say I have forgotten everything about my past, but still recognize those closest to me. And then I am unable to leave my bed. I no longer seem interested in food. The only option to care for me is in a nursing home. I can no longer toilet myself. So we'll just go ahead and select that. So if you recall, on the first one, when it said, I have forgotten everything about my past, but still recognize those closest to me, I said, I want no life-saving treatment. So I don't want CPR. I don't want to be on a ventilator, but I still want to be treated, if I get pneumonia, for any acute illnesses that I have. Now, if I were to combine all of these, I would change it to keep me comfortable and stop or avoid any treatments that are preventing me from dying from other diseases. And again, that's just my option that I would want for myself. And you can make as many combinations as you want. And so then on this page, you will enter your patient information. So just put all of your information in here. And then next, it's going to ask you to name a healthcare proxy. So this is somebody that you will have these conversations with, that they understand what you want your end of life experience to be like, and they're a really good advocate for you. And you can go in and name your healthcare proxy. So you'd put their information in here. And then you can also choose an alternative healthcare proxy in case that person's not available. And if you attended last week's session, we talked about what would make a good healthcare proxy. So again, having somebody whose family is not always the best option, because sometimes it can, they'll be going through grief and may not be able to be in the right state of mind to make the best decisions about your care. Family can be an option, but sometimes, really close friends or neighbors can also be a really great option. Someone who lives close to you could be a good option. And then this also gives you the option to exclude somebody from having information about your care and making decisions about it. So, I just mentioned family, and my family, when my grandmother passed away, she had shared a lot of her information with what she wanted with my mom. And she knew that my mom understood that. And then she has my aunt, her other daughters live in a different state. And she knew that they just had different values at the end of life. And she didn't fill this out and exclude them. But that is somebody that you could say, like, I don't want this person having, healthcare decision making on my behalf. Or some family members are also estranged as well. And then afterwards, you'll come here and it'll say view your custom report. And when you click this, it will add your dementia provision. So as you scroll down, you can see that this is just what we went through. This would be filled out because you would have put your patient information in, your healthcare proxy information, and then excluding anyone else. And then you can print this page or you can save it as a PDF. And then you can always go, and I've done this so many times where I've gone through and changed, what I want. So anytime you can go through and restart this, make updates to it. What's really important is that you talk to your family and friends about this tool after you've completed it, just so that they understand what it is you want. I think the biggest thing for me, when I think about how I want my end of life to be, is One of the things I always talk about is I love being outside. I love fresh air. So that's why for me, I'm not sure that, the nursing home would be a good option for me. So I think just communicating that, having conversations with your healthcare proxy around this so that they understand, in so many different ways what you want your end of life experience to be like is going to be your best option for getting what you want should dementia take hold. And then let me go back here. I want to go through some additional resources with you. So we also have a resource that can help you prepare for a dementia appointment. So we have this, if you attended our last webinar, we talked about this briefly. We have it for general illness, cancer, and dementia. So this one is the specific one for dementia. And this tool is going to help you get answers from the doctor. It's going to help you create a list of questions to help make sure that you're getting the care for your loved one that you want or for yourself that you want. So this question says, why are you seeing the doctor now? So you can select, I'm in the early stages of dementia. I want to focus on future care and treatment plan. The next option is, I do not have dementia. I want to discuss my treatment plan if I get dementia. The next option is, I'm a caregiver. I want to discuss my loved one's care plan and treatment plan. And then the last option says, my loved one has dementia and is being offered treatment for another condition. So I'm going to select, I'm a caregiver. So I want to discuss my loved one's care and treatment plan. And then it's going to ask you, what are you worried about? And you can select all of these or just the ones that you're concerned about. So the first one says understanding dementia and the various stages. The next option is avoiding unnecessary tests, treatment, pain, or suffering of my loved one. The next one is ensuring my loved one and I are informed of all treatment options. The next option is ensuring my loved one's treatment wishes are carried out. Then it can be nothing specific. And then you can enter your own concern right here if you would like. So I am going to select avoiding unnecessary tests, treatments, pain, or suffering of my loved one. And I select this one because my mom was a nurse, so I've talked to her about what she would want at the end of life if she were to get dementia, and this is what she has told me that she wants. So this is just going to populate 14 questions that you can ask, and you can go over here and select all if you want to ask all of these questions. But as you can see, these are just questions that maybe you haven't thought about before. If it's your first time caring for somebody who has Alzheimer's or dementia, it might be difficult to figure out what are the best questions to ask the doctor to make sure that you're getting the care that you want or that your loved one is getting the care that they want. So something that I have found is question number 2. So what is this test for and is it necessary? What happens if this test is not done? Are there other ways to get this information? So when my grandmother had Alzheimer's disease, whenever she was moved, she would become very disoriented for days. And if she went, to the hospital to get something and they'd have her like hooked up getting blood work or whatever, she would call and she would always think that she was like being tied up in a closet is what she would often call and be concerned about. And she wouldn't know where she was and she would be very frantic. So if the test is not necessary, then we can go ahead and skip it, right? So if this test isn't really going to improve somebody's quality of life, if it's just a routine test, maybe we can go ahead and skip it. Is there other ways to get this information? So do we need to get it? Is there different ways we can get it without, having somebody, go to a different clinic to get this? So just kind of, encouraging and empowering you to ask these questions with your doctor. Another question that I really like is this. So if this were your family member, what would you do? So asking the doctor what they would do in this situation. And as you can see, there's just 14 questions. This one is good too. So what questions haven't I asked that I should have? There's also another question about, depending on, if my loved one's, if my loved one wants to, if their goal is to live as long as possible, or if the goal is for my loved one to have the best quality of life, would that change the treatment option that you are recommending? And then you can also add your own question here. And what this will let you do is on the next page, you can review the list, see the different questions that you asked. If you added any, they will be included. And then you can email the list to yourself, and then you can print it and you can take it into your doctor appointment with you and your loved one. And I also just want to highlight our end-of-life consultation program. So I talked about this last week, but our end-of-life consultation program, you can call. We have specialized end-of-life consultants, and they can answer questions across the country. And this can just be, if you have questions about voluntary stop eating and drinking, if you have questions about how to interview a hospice, hospices in general provide the same basic services, but they also can provide different services. You might want to make sure, that your doctor's available, 24/7, or that there will be hospice staff available 24/7. You might want to find out if the hospice will support you, if you choose to do voluntary stop eating and drinking. So our end-of-life consultants can walk you through all of this and provide you with information and resources specific to your state. They can also go over advanced directives with you, teach you how to navigate different healthcare systems. And recently they told us a story about a woman who started calling, and for over a decade would just call, and depending on where she was at the end of her life, she would call and get some information and resources, and went all the way from living independently to when she was living in a care facility at the end. And they just kind of always helped guide her and provide her with the information and resources along the way. And so you can call for yourself, or you can call for a friend or a family member, for anyone. They'll talk to you, and they don't provide you with any sort of advice, but they just provide you with information and resources. And then if you're interested in volunteering, so Compassion and Choices, we have volunteers all over the country in every state. You can go to www.compassionandchoices.org/volunteer. And we have volunteers that help us give presentations in their community. They do book clubs. They write letters to the editor for us. They will host film screenings, and we try to have fun and make it fun. And then Compassion and Choices is funded almost exclusively by individual donors like you. So with sufficient resources, we can realize end-of-life options in every state. Every donation of any amount makes a difference. So please consider making a donation today. And you can go to compassionandchoices.org/donate. And now I'm going to introduce my coworker, Leslie, and she's going to help us with answering some of the questions.
Thanks, Angela. So I am going to start answering some of these questions. So we have one question that was, can I get dementia if I'm under 65? So yes, you can. The chances are small, but it is still possible to have a dementia diagnosis before the age of 65. We also have a question about VSED. So does VSED include not taking prescription medications? So you should talk to your doctor. You can still take medication to ease any pain or anxiety, but you should talk to your physician or hospice nurse about medications that may contribute to thirst or dry mouth. Angela.
Leslie, I'm going to answer one about voluntary stop eating and drinking. So there was a question that said I mentioned voluntary stop eating and drinking as an option in early stages. and that I had also mentioned hospice support, but in early stages, the patient is not likely to be in hospice. Can I elaborate? So for volunteer, that is correct. So in order to qualify and be eligible for hospice, you have to have a terminal diagnosis of less than 6 months or less to live. So what it's recommended is calling the hospices and letting them know that you have a dementia diagnosis and that you want to start the voluntary and stop eating and drinking process. And so then once you start that process, you then do become eligible because you have the diagnosis of less than 6 months or less to live. So that is what makes you eligible for hospice.
We have a similar question about VSED is how do you keep someone comfortable with no food or water? And like I said, you can talk to your doctor to still take medication to ease pain so it can be a more comfortable journey for you. And let's see. So Angela, I'll toss this question over to you. So someone said, I think my dad has early onset dementia, but he doesn't want to talk to his doctor about it. Any advice on how to get him to plan ahead and be prepared?
Yeah, so that one I would call the end of life consultant line. If you have any questions about anything going on, they would be the best people to speak to you because they get questions like this all the time and will help you kind of plan out how to do this. So.
And we also have, do you have all these forms in other languages? So on our website, we do offer our resources in Spanish. And we also give presentations fully in Spanish. We actually had a Spanish Advanced Healthcare Directive workshop a couple weeks ago. So all of our resources are available in Spanish. Then Angela, we have a question about the tool, I believe. So could you please discuss the combination section of the dementia end of life care document?
So the combination section for the dementia tool, and I do want to highlight too, I meant to say this, that it is just a tool. So this isn't necessarily a legal document because depending what state you are in, the not eating, refusing food and water, especially if you're in a skilled living facility, can be difficult depending on what state you're in because some states require that they continue to feed you. So for the combination, you can just go in and play around with it, but it's really just to say, like in my specific one, I said if my spiritual needs are being met, and if I no longer remember my past, but I still remember those closest to me and my loved ones. For those ones, I would say I no longer want life-saving treatment. So I don't want CPR. I don't want to be on a ventilator. I don't want to be on feeding tubes. However, then if you go and you combine it with some of the other ones that I had selected for me, that I would want to stop eating and drinking, that I don't want to be force fed anything. So things like if I can no longer toilet myself, if I can no longer get out of bed, if I can no longer, walk, if the only option is a nursing home for me, that changes what I would have initially selected. So for the combination, you can combine them because again, while if I no longer remember my past, but I remember those closest to me, that still seems like a pretty decent life. I would enjoy, I'm married to a wonderful person. I would enjoy spending more time with him as long as I can still remember him. But if it's combined with all those others, then that would change. And I would say, if I get pneumonia, then I don't want to be treated because, even if I can remember him, but not remember any of my past, with all the other things, if my only option is a nursing home and somebody has to bathe me and toilet me, then I would not, want to just continue living with just no life-saving options. I would, if I were to get sick with pneumonia or something, then at that point, I would feel like I had lived my full life and I would just want to die naturally and receive comfort care and not receive treatment for the pneumonia. So you can just go around. The best thing I can say is go around, play around in the tool. There, like I said, there's a 2-minute video that goes over it. Again, there's a whole navigation section just for time wise. I kind of skipped over that stuff. But it can really, you can go in and play with it as much as you want. I have done mine probably 100 times. And every time you, like we say, with all advanced directives, every time you update it where you feel like this is where you want it, you should print it and you should give it to your doctor. You should give it to your family and your friends and have conversations with them and ask them to get rid of any old things you have. So if anytime you update your advanced directive, you should give your new advanced directive to your doctor and your healthcare proxy and ask them to get rid of the old ones. Same thing with, we would recommend for this tool. Anytime you update it, have the conversation with your doctor so that they understand what it is you want. Because things may change, as you get older, your priorities may change, and you want to make sure that you can have, the best chance at having the end of life experience that matches your values. We have another question on here too, about, is medical aid in dying an option for me if I have dementia? So we talked a little bit about medical aid in dying last week. So I'll just briefly touch on it again. So medical aid in dying is for a person who has a terminal illness, and if they have less than 6 months to live, and it's authorized right now in 11 different jurisdictions, so 10 states and Washington, D.C. So eligibility is you have to be over the age of 18. You have to have a terminal illness with less than 6 months to live, so the same requirement as hospice, and you have to be able to self-ingest the medication. So if you have a dementia diagnosis, but let's say you also have a terminal illness from cancer and you happen to also get a dementia diagnosis, but you're still making healthcare decisions. So you'd be in your early stages of dementia, you would be eligible from your cancer diagnosis if that was terminal with less than 6 months to live. However, if all you have is dementia or Alzheimer, you cannot use medical aid in dying because you have to have full decision-making capabilities at the time that you choose to use medical aid in dying. As we discussed in this presentation, dementia can last on average 8 to 10 years. It's progressive. There's progressive memory loss. You will, as you go through it, you will lose the ability to make your own healthcare decisions, which is why we've created this tool to help people feel empowered at the end of life. But the option for medical aid in dying will not be available. And you cannot say, as soon as I get dementia, 5 years from now, if this is my situation, at that time, I want to use medical aid in dying, because you have to have full decision-making capabilities at that time. Somebody asked, I see, where do we get all this paperwork? So I will send this out to you. All of this is available on our website, but I will also send this to you in an email follow-up so that you have the direct links to our website. And then, like I said, if you want to get the book, the My End of Life Decisions book, that will be on our website, and you can just go in and order it. You put your address in and we mail you one for free.
We have a similar question about if we're going to repeat this. So Angela will be sending the recording. And if you are interested in having a presentation, you can put a request on our website. Like I mentioned, we do them in both English and Spanish, and we can send a link to request a presentation in the follow-up email.
Yeah, we do presentations a lot in all the states too. Our volunteers will go out and do these presentations. But also, like I said in the beginning, we're doing these webinars for National Healthcare Decisions Day. And so please feel free to share them with your family and friends. what we really want is to encourage everybody to have these conversations. April 16th is National Healthcare Decisions Day, so that's what we're leading up to. But yes, please feel free to share this, gather your friends together and you can rewatch them, and contact us if you have questions too. Just looking to see if there's any other questions in here. There was a couple more about that seemed to be about personal that we had a couple more questions in here that are more about like personal health concerns. So again, for those, I would contact our end of life consultant. So I'm going to include the phone number for our end of life consultant in the follow-up email as well. So you'll all have that resource as well. And I see there's some other questions too. So somebody asked, how can I have you do this presentation to my senior living facility? You can just respond to the email when we send it and we will connect with you. We have state managers all across the country that we can get in touch with and see if we can get one of these in your senior living facility, either in person or, if Zoom is an option, then those are super easy for us to do as well.
And Angela, we had a couple questions of how they can view the previous webinars, and I believe they're all on our YouTube page.
Yeah, and then our next training that we're going to do is going to be on April 13th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And that is going to be, they're called end-of-life doulas, or sometimes they're just referred to as death doulas. And we're just going to hear from a panel of end-of-life doulas about how they can assist in providing care at the end of life. So that link will be, if you're interested in attending that, we'll send that link out. You can also go to Compassion and Choices. What I do is just Google Compassion and Choices events, and that will take you to our events page, and you can see all of the webinars that we have coming up. So we're putting on a couple, my team we're having another one at the end of April, where it's called Lively Conversations About Death. So I think it's going to be really fun. We're going to play a game to encourage people to talk about end of life options and end of life care. But some of my other colleagues are also putting on webinars. I know there's an upcoming one about like, what does end stage kidney failure look like? Where we have, doctors from, experts from all over the country will be joining us and helping to put on all of these webinars as well. So that, again, I would just Google Compassion and Choices events, and you can get the list of all the events that we have upcoming. Any other questions, Leslie, that you saw?
I saw one that said, how do I find out what my state allows? So each Compassion Choices has a state page for each of our states. So if you go to the state page, you'll have a lot of resources there specific to your state. And then we had a question about the upcoming webinars, Angela. I thought the doulas was the 13th. So I believe we're having, like you mentioned, two that kind of center around that.
Yeah, did I say the doula wasn't on the 13th?
Possibly, but yeah, we
okay.
want to clarify.
Yeah, with on April 13th at 4 p.m. Pacific time, we're having the end of life doula panel. And then on April 27th at 4 p.m. Pacific time is when we're having the lively conversations about death.
And then I think we have time for another question, but we had a question of, if we don't have family, how do we find information about VSED? So like Angela mentioned, our end of life consultation line is a great resource. And Angela, I believe in the follow-up email, you'll send the number that they can call and get more information.
Yeah, we also have a lot of information about voluntary stop eating and drinking available on our website. One of our storytellers, her mom went through the voluntary stop eating and drinking process. And there's a book on our website as well that walks people through, that you can order, and it walks you through the voluntary stop eating and drinking process. And she just said it was so helpful to her and like learning how to go through this experience with her mom and best support her mom. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody so much for taking the time to join us today. Again, I'll be sending out an email. You'll probably get it by the end of this week or early next week with the recording, and then also with the resources that we mentioned and the end of life consultation program phone number for you all. Thank you.